Okay, quick thought experiment for you. When you hear the words successful leader, what comes to mind? Confident, decisive, maybe someone who trusts their gut.
Yeah, those are common associations.
Now, what if I told you that the very traits that feel right, the quick, intuitive judgments our minds make, are often the source of predictable errors? Errors that can actually steer us away from true success and, well, lasting happiness.
Hmm. That definitely goes against the grain sometimes.
Welcome to Success Happiness. This is where we take a deep book talk into really powerful ideas, ideas that can change your trajectory.
And today we're tackling a giant.
And we absolutely are. We're diving into a truly essential read, Thinking Fast and Slow by the brilliant Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman.
Kahneman's work is just foundational. It's incredible. He's not just describing psychology, he's sort of revealing the hidden architecture of how our minds operate.
Right.
And crucially, how they often, well, fail us in predictable ways. It's not really about being smart or dumb.
No.
It's more about understanding the operating system we all share.
Exactly. And our mission in this book talk is to pull out the most impactful, maybe the most surprising insights from this material.
Yeah, the stuff that really makes you think.
We want to give you the vocabulary, the understanding to see these patterns in your own thinking and, out in the world, and use that knowledge to make wiser choices on your path to success and well-being.
Get ready to see that voice inside your head in a whole new light. It's quite the journey.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start with the absolute core idea. The two systems, Kahneman says, drive our thinking.
Right. This is the heart of it. System 1 and System 2. Think of System 1 as, well, your mind's automatic pilot.
Okay.
It's incredibly fast, works pretty much without effort, and gives you those immediate impressions, feelings, intuitions.
Like flinching at a loud noise. Or recognizing a face instantly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or understanding a simple sentence. Effortless. It's always running sort of in the background, constantly generating suggestions about the world.
And then there's System 2.
Right, System 2. This is the effortful one. Deliberate, calculating. It's slow, it requires attention, real mental energy.
So like doing a tough math problem, 17 times 24.
Yep, that's System 2 grinding away. Or focusing intently on a complex task, comparing two different phones maybe. That's System 2 doing the heavy lifting.
So what's the relationship between them? How do they work together?
Well, System 1 offers up the quick, intuitive answer, the suggestion. And System 2 is kind of the supervisor. It can check System 1, maybe override its suggestions.
Okay, sounds like a good setup.
But here's the kicker. System 2 is often, well, lazy.
Lazy, really?
Yeah, it prefers to conserve energy. So unless something clearly signals an error, or unless it's forced to engage, it'll usually just go along with System 1's easy answers.
Huh. And you can actually see this effort.
You can. Studies show pupil dilation, how much your pupils widen, is a direct measure of mental effort.
Wow.
When people do hard System 2 tasks, their pupils get significantly larger, but there's a limit. Push someone too hard cognitively, and they hit a wall. They might give up or experience what they call mental blindness.
Ah, like the invisible gorilla experiment.
Exactly. People are so focused on a demanding System 2 task, like counting basketball passes.
Right, I remember this one.
They literally don't see a gorilla walking right through the middle of the scene. Their attention is just maxed out. System 2 being busy makes System 1 even more dominant.
It's like System 1 is the energetic intern, always throwing out ideas, and System 2 is the busy manager who just rubber stamps most of them because checking every single one is too much work.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. And System 2 is also what sets your focus, adopts new task sets, like consciously deciding, I'm going to count all the F's on this page.
Okay.
But maintaining that focus, that requires discipline, self-control. It fits with this law of least effort. Our brains naturally want the easiest path.
Which brings us to heuristics, right? System 1's shortcuts.
Precisely. Heuristics are these mental shortcuts, simple rules of thumb System 1 uses to answer difficult questions quickly by substituting them for easier ones.
Useful most of the time.
Very useful, yeah. That's why they evolved. But they're also the source of these systematic errors, the biases we keep talking about.
Okay, let's dig into some of those. The availability heuristic, that one seems to pop up everywhere.
Oh, constantly. This is where we judge how common or likely something is based purely on how easily examples come to mind. The ease of retrieval.
Like that K test you mentioned earlier. Trying to think of words starting with K versus words with K as the third letter.
Exactly. Most people find it way easier to recall words like kitchen or kite. So they assume words starting with K are more common.
But they're not.
Nope. Statistically, letters like K, L, N, R are more frequent in the third position. Your judgment gets skewed by how easy it feels to find examples, not the actual
And
facts.
the impact of that, it must be huge for risk perception.
Absolutely massive. Think
Mhm.
about it. Plane crashes, shark attacks, specific vivid crimes get tons of media coverage.
Yeah, they stick in your mind.
Right, so they feel much more likely than, say, dying from diabetes or a stroke, even though statistically those are far bigger risks. The dramatic examples are just so much more available to your memory.
So our fear levels don't always match the actual danger.
Not at all. And this could even lead to availability cascades.
Hmm.
An event gets hyped by the media, public fear grows, politicians feel pressure,
Uh-huh.
and policies get made based on this amplified fear, which might be totally out of proportion to the actual statistical risk compared to less available threats. The key takeaway, don't confuse how easily you remember something with how likely it actually is.
That's a really crucial filter to apply, especially with all the information coming at us. Okay, what about another big one? The representativeness heuristic.
Right, representativeness. This is judging something's likelihood based on how much it resembles a stereotype or fits a category. How representative is it?
Give me an example.
Okay, the classic is Steve the librarian. Kahneman describes Steve shy, tidy, meek, detail-oriented,
Yeah.
then asks, is Steve more likely a farmer or a librarian?
Well, he sounds exactly like the stereotype of a librarian.
Exactly. So most people say librarian.
Hmm.
But they forget a crucial piece of information,
Yeah.
the base rate.
The base rate.
Yeah, the actual number of farmers versus librarians in the population. There are vastly more farmers.
So statistically, he's much more likely to be a farmer, even with that description.
Precisely.
Hmm.
System 1 jumps on the representative description and totally ignores the underlying probability.
Wow. And this leads to logical errors, right? Like the conjunction fallacy.
Yes, the famous Linda problem. Linda's described as bright, outspoken, concerned with social justice. Sounds very much like a feminist activist, right?
Okay, yeah.
Then the question, is Linda more likely to be A, a bank teller, or B, a bank teller and active in the feminist movement?
Option B sounds more like her description.
It does. It's more representative. But logically, the probability of two things happening together, bank teller, A, and feminist, can never be higher than the probability of just one of them happening, dame teller.
Right, that makes sense when you put it like that, but it doesn't feel right intuitively.
Exactly. That's the power of representativeness. People overwhelmingly choose the illogical option B because it fits the stereotype better, and they really resist the logic. This heuristic also makes us ignore sample size. We trust conclusions from tiny samples way too much. The law of small numbers trap.
It's amazing how our intuition can just steamroll basic math.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears. The anchoring effect. What's that about?
Anchoring is fascinating. It's how an initial piece of information, an anchor, even if it's completely irrelevant, heavily influences your later estimates or decisions about something.
Even irrelevant information.
Yeah, even a random number. They did experiments where people spun a rigged wheel of fortune, landing on either a high or low number. Then they asked them to estimate something totally unrelated, like the percentage of African nations in the UN.
Yeah.
People who saw the high random number gave significantly higher estimates than those who saw the low number. The random number acted as an anchor, and their minds adjusted from it, but not enough.
I can see how that plays out in negotiations. The first offer sets the stage.
Absolutely. That first number, high or low, anchors the whole discussion. Your mind unconsciously tries to make sense of that anchor, making thoughts compatible with it more accessible. It's like a suggestion priming effect.
Yeah.
Knowing this happens is your first defense.
Good point. And one more heuristic tied to feelings. The affect heuristic.
Right. Affect heuristic is basically system 1 using your gut feelings, your likes and dislikes, to judge risks and benefits.
So if I like something, I think it's safe and beneficial.
Pretty much. If you have a positive feeling about, say, a new technology, your mind automatically assumes it has low risks and high benefits. If you dislike it, you'll intuitively see high risks and low benefits.
So the feeling drives the analysis, not the other way around.
Often, yes. As they say, for many people, risk is feeling. It's a quick way to decide, but easily swayed by emotions that might not be grounded in fact.
Okay, so these heuristics are System 1's toolbox, fast, efficient, but definitely prone to error. Let's talk about some other biases and illusions that affect our judgment.
Sure. One very common one is the halo effect.
Ah, the halo effect, where one good trait makes us think everything about someone is good.
Exactly. If someone is attractive or speaks confidently, we tend to unconsciously assume they're also intelligent, competent, trustworthy, even if we have no evidence for those other things.
Or a negative trait casting a shadow over everything else.
Precisely. It works both ways. System 1 loves consistency. If one thing is good or bad, it wants the whole picture to match. This applies to people, companies, products.
Makes sense. And you mentioned ease earlier, cognitive ease.
Right. System 1 just likes things that are easy to process. Simple language, clear fonts, familiar ideas, they all create cognitive ease. And things that feel easy also tend to feel true or good.
So repetition makes things feel truer.
It does. Even repeating nonsense phrases can increase their perceived validity over time because they become familiar and easier to process. Cognitive ease feels good, comfortable.
And mood plays a role here too.
Big role. When you're in a good mood, you generally experience more cognitive ease. This makes you rely more on System 1. You're more intuitive, maybe more creative,
Right.
but also more gullible. More likely to accept System 1's potentially flawed suggestions. A bad mood, conversely, makes you more vigilant. Engages System 2 more, you become more analytical, but perhaps less creative.
Interesting trade-off. Now, WISID, this sounds important. What you see is all there is.
It's fundamental to how System 1 works. It takes whatever information is currently available, no matter how limited or biased,
Okay.
and immediately weaves a coherent, convincing story out of it. The crucial part is, it completely ignores the information that isn't there. It doesn't account for missing pieces.
So if I just hear, she's intelligent and driven.
System 1 instantly concludes, she'll be a great leader. It builds this confident story based only on those two traits. It doesn't pause to ask, wait, what about her people skills, her integrity, the market challenges?
It just makes the most coherent story from the available fragments.
Exactly. Kahneman uses a legal example, too. People shown only one side of a case, even when told it's only one side, form very strong opinions based solely on that limited evidence. WISID means System 1 is great at making sense with limited data, but terrible at realizing how limited that data is.
That's huge for avoiding snap judgments, especially on the path to success. You need to actively seek out the missing information.
Absolutely. And this story-weaving tendency also fuels the illusion of understanding, what's sometimes called the narrative fallacy.
Making sense of the past.
Yeah, we look back at events and create these neat narratives that make everything seem predictable, inevitable, understandable, way more orderly than it actually was at the time.
Which leads straight into hindsight bias.
The old I knew it all along effect. After something happens, a stock market crash, an election result, even a personal success,
Yeah.
we genuinely feel like we saw it coming or that it was obvious. Our memory subtly rewrites the past to fit the outcome.
And that's bad because
It's incredibly damaging for learning and evaluation. We start judging past decisions based on their outcome, not on whether they were sound at the time, given the available information.
Right. The surgeon makes a reasonable choice, but there's a rare complication, and suddenly they're blamed unfairly.
Exactly. Or the leader takes a huge gamble that pays off by luck, and they're hailed as a visionary genius. Hindsight bias makes it really hard to learn from mistakes or accurately assess decision quality.
Definitely makes objective feedback tricky.
Wow.
Okay, another tricky one. Regression to the mean. This sounds statistical.
It is purely statistical, but it constantly trips up our intuition. Basically, any extreme performance or measurement is likely to be followed by one closer to the average, just due to random chance.
No cause needed, just statistics.
Just statistics. Kahneman gives the great example of the Israeli flight instructors.
Oh, yeah, the shouting versus praise.
The instructor noticed that when he praised cadets for exceptionally smooth landings, they usually did worse the next time. When he yelled at them for really bad landings, they usually improved.
So he concluded punishment works and praise doesn't.
Exactly. But he was completely missing regression to the mean. The cadets he praised had probably just had an unusually good landing, maybe luck played a role. Their next landing was likely to be closer to their normal average anyway.
Than the ones he yelled at.
They'd likely just had an unusually bad landing. Their next try was also likely to regress back toward their average performance, regardless of the shouting. The perceived effect of reward and punishment was mostly just statistical regression.
So a golfer who shoots an amazing score one day is likely to do worse the next, and vice versa.
Statistically, yes, most likely. Our intuition wants a causal story, but often it's just regression. This is critical for making predictions. Intuitive predictions tend to be too extreme because they don't account for this pullback towards the average.
So if a student reads early, we predict they'll be a straight-A genius, ignoring regression.
We often do. More accurate predictions need to be moderated, pulled closer to the average, especially when the evidence you have isn't perfectly correlated with the outcome you're predicting.
This seems linked to the illusion of validity, feeling confident even when the evidence is weak.
Precisely. Our confidence often comes from the coherence of the story we build in our head, or how well the input fits our expectations, like in an interview, not from the actual predictive power of the information. Stock pickers, political pundits. High confidence, often low accuracy because the environment is noisy.
Okay, and we can't talk about success without mentioning optimism and its downsides.
Definitely not. We have a powerful optimistic bias. We tend to be overly optimistic about our own qualities, our chances of success, and the outcomes of our plans.
Leads to the planning fallacy.
Absolutely. The planning fallacy is almost universal. We consistently underestimate the time, money, and risks involved in future projects while simultaneously overestimating the benefits.
Guilty as charged with home renovations.
Ha! Everyone is. Kitchen remodels, major work projects, even writing a report. We focus on our plan, our skills, the inside view, and imagine the best-case scenario, ignoring all the potential pitfalls and delays that statistics show are common.
So how do we fight that?
Kahneman strongly advocates for the outside view. Instead of just focusing on the specifics of your project, deliberately look for data on similar projects. What is the average cost overrun? How long do they actually take?
Use the statistics of comparable cases.
Exactly. That distributional information is a much better anchor for realistic planning than your own internal optimism. Now, this optimistic bias isn't all bad. It fuels entrepreneurship, innovation.
Right, the engine of capitalism, as they say.
True. But understanding the planning fallacy is crucial for actually executing successfully and avoiding major disappointments.
Okay, fascinating stuff on judgment and prediction. Let's switch to decision-making, especially with risk. Prospect theory.
Yes, another groundbreaking contribution. Prospect theory challenged traditional economics by showing people don't make choices based on the final state of their wealth.
Like how much money they'll have in total.
Right. Instead, we evaluate outcomes based on changes, gains, or losses relative to a reference point. Usually that reference point is our current situation, the status quo.
So it's about the change, not the absolute level.
Exactly. And the absolute cornerstone concept here, something you really need to grasp, is loss aversion.
Losses hurt more.
Way more. Losses loom larger than equivalent gains. The psychological pain of losing $100 is roughly twice as intense as the pleasure of gaining $100.
Twice. Wow.
Yeah, it's a powerful effect. This explains why most people turn down a simple 50-50 gamble, like winning $200 versus losing $100.
Even though the potential win is double the potential loss.
Yep. Because the fear or anticipated pain of losing that $100 outweighs the anticipated pleasure of gaining $200. Loss aversion is fundamental to understanding economic behavior, negotiations, why people resist change.
And it drives the endowment effect, too. Valuing things more just because we own them.
Directly. The famous coffee mug experiment illustrates it perfectly. People given a mug demanded about twice as much money to sell it as potential buyers who didn't own one were willing to pay.
Just owning it made it feel more valuable.
Because giving it up felt like a loss, and losses hurt. This affects how we price things we own, from houses to stocks. Our preferences aren't fixed. They depend on our reference point. Are we gaining or losing?
Which leads straight to framing effects. How you present the choice matters.
Hugely. Even if the underlying outcomes are identical, changing the frame can completely flip the decision.
Like the medical treatment example.
Classic one. People strongly prefer a surgery framed as having a 90% survival rate over the exact same surgery framed as having a 10% mortality rate. Survival sounds good, mortality sounds bad. Same reality, different emotional response, different choice.
And it affects risk-taking too, right?
Definitely. We tend to be risk-averse when facing gains. We'd rather take a sure gain, like $240, than a gamble with a slightly higher expected value but a chance of getting nothing.
Okay, lock in the game.
But we become risk-seeking when facing losses. If facing a sure loss of $750, many people will prefer to take a gamble that offers a chance of losing nothing, even if the gamble has a worse expected outcome, like a chance of losing $1,000.
Trying to avoid the certain pain of loss?
Exactly. You can nudge people just by framing something as avoiding a loss versus achieving a gain. Understanding framing is critical in marketing, policy negotiation, even setting personal goals.
Even small things, like saving money on a purchase.
Yep. The calculator versus jacket example. Saving $5 feels significant when buying a $15 calculator. A big percentage saving feels like a gain frame relative to the item cost. But saving the same $5 on a $125 jacket feels trivial, small percentage.
Huh.
The absolute saving is the same, but the frame changes our willingness to, say, drive across town for the deal.
Wow, our minds are easily nudged. What about probabilities in prospect theory, especially rare events?
Our handling of probabilities is peculiar. Very low probability events tend to be either completely ignored or, if they're vivid and get our attention, like through news coverage,
Yeah.
they get massively overweighted. We act as if they're much more likely than they actually are.
So we're bad at distinguishing between really small risks, like 1 in 100,000 versus 1 in a million.
Very insensitive to those variations, yes. They'll just feel tiny. This contributes to fearing spectacular but rare events while maybe downplaying more common mundane risks.
And this leads to the certainty premium.
Right. We're willing to pay a disproportionately large amount to eliminate a risk completely, to go from a small risk to zero risk, much more than we'd pay to reduce the risk by the same amount but still leave some risk remaining. That feeling of absolute certainty is psychologically very valuable.
So many non-rational factors driving our choices. Okay, Kahneman introduces one more really profound distinction: the two selves.
Yes, this one really makes you think about happiness and life evaluation. He distinguishes between the experiencing self and the remembering self.
Okay, what's the difference?
The experiencing self lives in the present moment. It's what feels pleasure or pain from second to second. The remembering self is, well, the storyteller. It constructs narratives about our past experiences, maintains the overall score, and crucially, it's the one that makes decisions for the future based on those memories.
And the remembering self isn't entirely accurate.
Not at all. It's heavily biased by two things: duration neglect and the peak end rule.
Meaning?
When the remembering self evaluates a past experience, it largely ignores how long the experience lasted. Duration neglect. Instead, its overall assessment is dominated by the most intense moment, the peak, and how the experience ended, the end.
The duration doesn't really matter to the memory.
Bizarrely, not much. The cold hand experiment showed this vividly.
Well,
People put a hand in painfully cold water. One trial was shorter but ended at maximum discomfort. The other trial was longer overall, but in the last phase, the water warmed up slightly, making the end less painful.
okay. So which did they prefer to repeat?
They chose to repeat the longer, objectively more painful trial. Why? Because the remembering self evaluated it more favorably due to the less painful ending. The memory was better, even though the experience was worse overall.
So the remembering self makes choices that aren't always best for the experiencing self.
Exactly. It prioritizes the story, the memory, over the sum of moment-to-moment feelings. This even applies to how we evaluate a whole life. Studies found people's judgments of how happy someone's life was were insensitive to duration, 30 versus 60 years, but heavily influenced by how happy the final years were. Peak end and duration, neglect again.
That explains why we focus so much on creating memorable moments on vacation. We're
Yeah.
catering to the remembering self.
Precisely. Collecting memories, taking photos, that's for the remembering self. Just relaxing and enjoying the moment caters more to the experiencing self. Often, tourism is designed for the remembering self.
And this ties into the focusing illusion.
Yes, whatever aspect of life you happen to be focusing on right now will seem disproportionately important for your overall happiness or life satisfaction when you think about it.
Like the California weather study.
Perfect example. People asked to rate their life satisfaction showed no difference between Californians and Midwesterners. But when asked specifically about climate and then life satisfaction, both groups thought climate was a major factor and that Californians must be happier. Focusing on climate made it seem more important than it actually was to overall well-being.
So we overestimate the impact of single factors we focus on, like getting a promotion or moving to a sunnier place.
We often do. The focusing illusion means we might chase things believing they'll bring lasting happiness, when their actual contribution to our complex moment-to-moment experience might be smaller than we anticipate. Interestingly, income correlates more strongly with the remembering self's life satisfaction score than with the experiencing self's daily feelings, especially above a certain threshold. Goals matter to the story we tell ourselves.
Wow. Okay, so after all this, the biases, the illusions, the two selves, it really makes you question, can we ever trust our intuition? And more importantly, how can we make better decisions?
That's the critical question. Kahneman provides some guidance. Genuine expert intuition can be trusted, but only under specific conditions.
Which are?
You need extensive practice in a regular, predictable environment where you get rapid and clear feedback on the correctness of your judgments.
Like chess masters, firefighters, experienced doctors making diagnoses.
Exactly. In those domains, System 1 has had countless opportunities to learn the patterns and associate cues with correct outcomes because the environment is stable enough and the feedback is immediate.
But intuition is less reliable elsewhere.
Much less reliable in environments that are inherently unpredictable, low validity, or where feedback is slow, ambiguous, or just absent. Think long-term political forecasting, stock picking, or even clinical psychologists predicting long-term outcomes for patients.
Even if the experts feel really confident.
Especially then. Subjective confidence is often a poor indicator of accuracy in these domains. That's the illusion of validity again. Confidence based on the coherence of the story System 1 creates, not objective accuracy.
So what's the alternative in those messier domains?
This is where simple algorithms or statistical rules often shine. Decades of research, starting with Paul Meehl, show that even simple formulas often outperform human expert judgment in predicting outcomes.
Like the APGAR score for newborns.
Perfect example, a simple checklist and scoring system. It works because it's consistent and focuses on valid cues, unlike potentially biased intuitive judgments that can vary wildly. Simple, equally weighted formulas can be remarkably powerful.
So for important decisions in uncertain areas, maybe rely less on gut feelings and more on structured approaches.
That's a key takeaway. Using checklists, algorithms where available, or even just simple predefined rules can improve consistency and accuracy.
Okay, so what practical steps can we take to mitigate these biases in our own lives on our path to success and happiness?
Well, awareness is the crucial first step. Just knowing about System 1, WYSID, loss aversion, etc. helps you recognize them, though it doesn't magically make them disappear.
But it gives you a language to talk about them.
Exactly. Then, actively employ strategies. Use the outside view for any kind of planning. Look at the statistics for similar cases, not just your optimistic internal plan.
Fight the planning fallacy.
Right. For group decisions, get independent opinions before discussion. This avoids contamination from anchors, halos, or the first person who speaks confidently. Decorrelate errors.
Makes sense. What else?
Be aware of framing. If a choice feels really strong one way, deliberately try to reframe it. Think about it in terms of losses instead of gains or vice versa. See if your preference changes.
Test your own reaction to the frame.
Yep. For recurring decisions, especially financial ones, consider setting risk policies in advance. Decide how you'll react before the situation arises to counteract loss aversion or panic, like deciding to rebalance your portfolio only at set intervals.
Take System 1's immediate emotional reaction out of it?
Try to, yes.
Yeah.
And remember, regression to the mean when making predictions. Your intuitive forecasts are probably too extreme. Moderate them towards the average, especially if your evidence is weak. Be skeptical of high confidence based on flimsy data.
Know the limits of your knowledge.
Absolutely. And remember, System 2's laziness. Be extra careful when you're tired, stressed, or distracted. That's when System 1 runs wild. Pausing, taking a breath, deliberately engaging System 2 can make a huge difference.
This journey through Kahneman's work, it really provides such a powerful lens, doesn't it, for looking at our own minds, our choices, how we pursue success and happiness.
It's incredibly illuminating. It shows that being effective isn't just about raw intelligence or willpower. It's also about understanding this internal operating system.
Recognizing that intuition is amazing sometimes, but also systematically flawed other times.
Exactly. Knowing the patterns of those flaws is like having a superpower for navigating the world and your own mind.
It really underscores how much of our reality, our decisions, are shaped by these hidden mental processes we're usually oblivious to.
It's humbling in a way.
Definitely. Okay, let's wrap up with a final thought for you, the listener, to take away and mull over.
Let's do it.
Given everything we've discussed, how easily our minds can be swayed by intuition, by biases, by framing what's one specific area in your life, maybe it's related to your career, your finances, your health, relationships, where understanding these predictable errors might lead you to revisit a past decision or maybe approach a future choice differently.
Yeah. How might knowing about System 1 and System 2 change the way you evaluate information or the advice you get, or even just your own gut feelings as you pursue success and happiness?
Something to really think about. If you found this deep book talk fascinating and you want to keep uncovering surprising insights that can help you thrive, definitely subscribe to the Success Happiness channel. We'll have more discussions and talks like this.